In the autumn of 1907, nestled within the rolling hills of rural Massachusetts, there stood a grand Victorian house known as Thornfield Manor. The wind whispers through the tall maple trees surrounding the property, their leaves already turning amber and crimson with the changing season. The camera pans slowly across the elaborate facade of the house, ornate trim work, a wraparound porch, and tall windows that seem to watch like unblinking eyes. This is the home of the Montgomery family, respected throughout the county for their wealth accumulated through the textile industry. A horse-drawn carriage approaches, coming to a stop at the entrance of the manor. A young woman steps out, clutching her leather satchel. This is Miss Eleanor Pierce, newly hired as a governess for the Montgomery twins. Her simple gray dress and practical coat mark her as educated but not wealthy. She adjusts her hat nervously as she gazes up at the imposing structure that will now be her home. The massive oak door swings open before she can knock. Mrs. Jenkins, the housekeeper, stands in the doorway, her face stern and unwelcoming. "Miss Pierce, I presume. You're late. We expected you on the noon train." Eleanor removes her gloves, her hands slightly trembling. "Forgive me, Mrs. Jenkins. There was a delay. A tree had fallen across the tracks near Springfield." Mrs. Jenkins sniffs disapprovingly, but steps aside to let Eleanor enter. The interior of the house is even more impressive than its exterior. Polished mahogany, Persian rugs, and oil paintings in gilded frames. Crystal chandeliers hang from high ceilings, the electric lights a sign of the family's progressive wealth, though several gas lamps still adorn the walls, unlit during daylight hours. The master and mistress are away in Boston for the season. Mrs. Jenkins explains as she leads Eleanor up the grand staircase. "They were called away on urgent business shortly after your appointment was confirmed. They're not expected back until Christmas." Eleanor follows, taking in the details of her new surroundings. "And the children? The twins I'm to look after?" Mrs. Jenkins pauses on the landing, turning to face Eleanor. Her expression is difficult to read. "Yes, the Montgomery twins. Evelyn and Edward, 8 years old. You'll meet them at supper. They're special children." There's something in the way she says special that sends a chill down Eleanor's spine. "Special in what way, Mrs. Jenkins?" The housekeeper hesitates. "It's not my place to say, Miss Pierce. You'll see for yourself soon enough. The previous governess, well, she left rather suddenly. I was told she had a family emergency." "Is that what they said?" Mrs. Jenkins turns and continues up the stairs. "This will be your room." She opens a door to a modest but comfortable bedroom. A 4-poster bed with crisp white linens, a writing desk beneath a window overlooking the gardens, and a small fireplace already lit against the autumn chill. Supper is at 6 o'clock sharp. The children take their meals in the nursery, but Mr. Montgomery requested that you dine with them to establish your authority from the beginning. I'll have hot water brought up so you can refresh yourself after your journey. With that, Mrs. Jenkins leaves, closing the door firmly behind her. Eleanor sets down her satchel and moves to the window. The view is breathtaking. Gardens that, even in autumn, show signs of meticulous care, and beyond them, dense woods that seem to stretch endlessly. But something catches her eye, a small movement at the edge of the tree line. She leans closer to the glass. 2 small figures stand perfectly still, watching the house. Children, dressed identically in dark clothing. Even from this distance, their similarity is striking. Eleanor turns quickly, but the room is empty. She shakes her head, attributing her nerves to the long journey and Mrs. Jenkins's cryptic words. She unpacks her few belongings, placing her books on the small shelf above the desk. Among them are volumes on childhood education, a book of fairy tales, and her personal journal. As the grandfather clock in the hallway chimes 6 times, Eleanor makes her way to the nursery, following the directions Mrs. Jenkins had given her. The 3rd floor of the house is quieter, more isolated from the servants' activities below. The nursery door is slightly ajar, a warm glow spilling out into the dim hallway. Eleanor straightens her collar, takes a deep breath, and knocks gently before pushing the door open. The nursery is a large, well-appointed room. A cheerful fire burns in the grate. Toys are arranged neatly on shelves. Porcelain dolls, wooden trains, building blocks, and picture books. A table is set for 3, with fine china that seems too delicate for children's use. And there, seated side by side at the table, are the Montgomery twins. They look up in unison as Eleanor enters, and for a moment, she finds herself speechless. They are identical in every visible way. Same heart-shaped faces, same golden curls, same rosebud mouths. They're dressed in matching outfits. Evelyn in a blue pinafore dress with white lace collar, Edward in a blue sailor suit with matching collar. Perfect mirrors of each other. "Good evening," Eleanor says, finding her voice. "I'm Miss Pierce, your new governess." The twins continue to stare, neither speaking. It's then that Eleanor notices something odd. Both children are sitting with their hands folded identically on the table, backs straight, heads tilted at precisely the same angle. "Evelyn and Edward, yes? I'm very pleased to meet you both." After a moment that stretches uncomfortably long, they speak in perfect unison. "Good evening, Miss Pierce." Their voices are identical in pitch and cadence, making it impossible to distinguish which is the boy and which is the girl. Eleanor moves toward the table, maintaining what she hopes is a pleasant smile. "I look forward to getting to know you both. Your parents have told me you're very bright children. Have you spoken to Mother and Father?" they ask again in unison. "Well, no, not directly, but in their letters." "They never write letters," they interrupt, their expressions unchanged. Before Eleanor can respond, the door opens and Mrs. Jenkins enters with a maid carrying trays of food. "I see you've met the children, Miss Pierce. Please be seated. Cook has prepared a special meal for your first evening with us." Eleanor sits across from the twins, who continue to watch her with unblinking eyes. The food is served: roast chicken, potatoes, and green beans, with apple tart for dessert. The twins eat with perfect manners, taking identical bites at identical intervals. "Tell me about yourselves," Eleanor says, attempting to establish a rapport. "What do you enjoy studying?" "We enjoy the same things," they reply together. "And what might those things be?" "Looking," says one. "Listening," says the other. It's the first time they've spoken separately, and Eleanor seizes the opportunity. "And which one of you is Evelyn? And which is Edward?" The twins exchange a glance, a silent communication passing between them. Then they smile, identical smiles that don't quite reach their eyes. "I'm Evelyn," says the child on the left. "I'm Edward," says the child on the right. But something makes Eleanor pause. There's a quality to their eyes that she hadn't noticed before. In the soft glow of the electric lamp above the table, she can see that the twins have different colored eyes. Both have one blue eye and one green, but mirrored. Evelyn's right eye is blue while her left is green, and Edward's right eye is green while his left is blue. Heterochromia, Eleanor recalls from her studies. Unusual, but not unheard of in twins. But as she looks closer at the child who identified as Evelyn, something about the left eye, the green one, seems different. Not just in color, but in quality. It seems to catch the light differently, to look at Eleanor with a knowing that the other eyes lack. Eleanor suppresses a shiver and returns to her meal. "After supper, perhaps you could show me your favorite books? Tomorrow we'll begin our lessons properly." The twins nod in unison, their gazes never leaving her face. The rest of the meal passes in uncomfortable silence. When they've finished, the twins rise together and move to a bookshelf, returning with identical copies of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. "This is our favorite," they say together. "Will you read to us, Miss Pierce?" Eleanor takes one of the books, noting that it looks brand new, the spine unbroken. "Of course. Shall we sit by the fire?" The children arrange themselves on the hearth rug, sitting with their legs crossed at precisely the same angle, hands folded in their laps. Eleanor settles into a chair and begins to read. As she reads, she can't help but glance up occasionally. The twins' attention never wavers, their expressions mirroring each other perfectly. But once, when she looks up suddenly, she catches the child on the left, Evelyn, watching her with only the left eye, the green one, while the right remains fixed on the book. When the clock strikes 8, Eleanor closes the book. "That's enough for tonight, children. Time for bed." "Mrs. Jenkins helps us prepare for bed," they say together. As if summoned, the housekeeper appears at the door. "Come along then, children." The twins stand in unison and walk to the door, turning back to face Eleanor. "Good night, Miss Pierce," they say together. "Sweet dreams," Eleanor replies, watching as they follow Mrs. Jenkins down the hall to what she assumes is their bedroom. Left alone in the nursery, Eleanor explores the room more thoroughly. The toys, while plentiful, all appear untouched. The books on the shelves are arranged by height, their spines perfect. She opens one of the drawers in a small desk and finds identical penmanship exercises, the handwriting on both papers exactly the same, down to the slightest curve of each letter. A photograph on the wall catches her attention. It shows the twins as infants, held by a younger Mr. and Mrs. Montgomery. Even then, their similarity was striking. But Eleanor notices something. In the photograph, both babies have matching eyes. There's no sign of the heterochromia they now possess. Eleanor returns to her room, her mind troubled by the strange children and their perfect symmetry. As she prepares for bed, she takes out her journal and begins to write. October 17th, 1907. First day at Thornfield Manor. The Montgomery twins are unlike any children I've ever encountered. They move and speak as one, yet there's something in Evelyn's left eye that suggests, what? Awareness? Secret knowledge? I cannot say, but I sense that things in this house are not what they seem. Eleanor is awakened in the middle of the night by a sound. Soft footsteps in the hallway outside her door. She sits up, listening intently. The footsteps pause outside her room, then continue past. Curious and perhaps unwisely, Eleanor lights a candle and moves to the door, opening it just enough to peek out. In the dim corridor, she sees a small figure disappearing around the corner. One of the twins, dressed in a white nightgown. But which one? Eleanor hesitates only briefly before following, careful to keep her footsteps silent on the carpeted floor. The child leads her up a narrow staircase Eleanor hadn't noticed before, likely used by servants to move unobtrusively through the house. It ends at a small door that opens onto the roof. Eleanor shivers as the cool night air hits her. The child stands at the edge of the roof, looking up at the full moon that bathes everything in silvery light. From behind, it's impossible to tell which twin it is. You shouldn't be up here, Eleanor says softly. It's dangerous, and it's well past bedtime. The child turns slowly. It's Evelyn, or at least the twin who identified as Evelyn at dinner. In the moonlight, her left eye seems to glow with an inner light of its own. I come here to listen, she says, her voice different when not synchronized with her brother's, softer, with a slight lisp. Listen to what? Eleanor asks, moving closer, but careful not to frighten the child. To the voices in the trees. They tell me things. Eleanor's heart beats faster, but she keeps her voice calm. What sort of things do they tell you? Evelyn tilts her head, that unusual left eye seeming to look through Eleanor rather than at her. They told me you would come. They told me you would see. See what, Evelyn? The child smiles, a secretive curve of lips. Not yet. You're not ready yet, but you will be. Before Eleanor can question her further, the door to the roof opens again, and Mrs. Jenkins appears, her face tight with anger. Miss Pierce, what is the meaning of this? Bringing one of the children onto the roof at this hour, in your night clothes no less. I didn't, Eleanor begins, but Mrs. Jenkins cuts her off. Save your explanations. Get back to bed at once, both of you. We'll discuss this in the morning. Eleanor has no choice but to follow the housekeeper back inside, Evelyn trailing behind them. At the door to the twins' bedroom, Mrs. Jenkins takes Evelyn's hand firmly. I'll see to the child. Good night, Miss Pierce. The door closes with finality, leaving Eleanor standing alone in the corridor, confused and troubled by Evelyn's strange words. Back in her room, Eleanor is too unsettled to sleep. She adds another entry to her journal. Later the same night, found Evelyn on the roof looking at the moon. She spoke of voices in the trees, of things they tell her. She knew I was coming. What is happening in this house? And why did Mrs. Jenkins assume I had taken the child to the roof? The way she looked at me, as if she feared me rather than was angry with me. The next morning, Eleanor dresses carefully in her best teaching dress, a high-necked navy blue wool with modest lace at the collar and cuffs. She arranges her hair in a simple but neat bun, determined to present a professional appearance despite the strange occurrences of the night before. When she enters the breakfast room, she's surprised to find only Mrs. Jenkins waiting for her. The children take breakfast in the nursery, the housekeeper explains. But I wanted a word with you first, Miss Pierce. Eleanor steels herself for a reprimand about the roof incident, but Mrs. Jenkins's words take her by surprise. The children are fond of playing games with new staff. I must ask that you not indulge them in these games. It only encourages behavior that their parents find troubling. Games? I'm not sure I understand. Mrs. Jenkins lowers her voice, though they are alone in the room, the pretending to be each other, the speaking in unison, the stories about voices and other things. Mr. Montgomery was quite specific that these tendencies should be discouraged, not humored. Eleanor's confusion must show on her face because Mrs. Jenkins sighs heavily. You truly don't know, do you? The Montgomerys hired you because of your excellent references, but they perhaps should have been more forthcoming about the children's condition. Condition? The doctors call it folie à deux, a madness shared by two. the twins have developed unusual behaviors since their 5th birthday. They insist on dressing identically, speaking in unison, mirroring each other's movements, and there have been other, more troubling incidents. What sort of incidents? Mrs. Jenkins hesitates. It's not my place to say, but know this. The children must be kept to a strict routine. They must not be allowed to wander the house alone, especially at night, and any unusual behavior should be reported to me immediately. With that cryptic warning, Mrs. Jenkins rises. The children are waiting for their lessons. I've had the small library prepared as a schoolroom. Follow me. Eleanor follows, her mind racing. Folie 2. She had read about the condition in a psychology journal, a shared delusion, typically between close family members. But what delusion did the Montgomery twins share? The library is a cozy room with large windows overlooking the garden. A long table has been arranged with books, papers, and writing implements. The twins are already seated side by side, dressed again in matching outfits. Today in burgundy velvet, Evelyn in a dress, and Edward in a suit with short pants. "Good morning, children," Eleanor says brightly, determined to establish a normal classroom environment. "Good morning, Miss Pierce," they reply in perfect unison, their faces expressionless. Eleanor sets her teaching materials on the table. "Today we'll begin with an assessment of your knowledge in various subjects. I'd like you each to write a short composition about your favorite season." She places paper in front of each child and watches as they pick up their pencils simultaneously. They begin to write, their hands moving across the page in identical motions. Eleanor walks behind them, observing over their shoulders, and what she sees sends a chill through her. They are writing the exact same essay, word for word, their handwriting indistinguishable. "Evelyn, Edward," she says firmly, "I'd like you to write your own thoughts, not copy from each other." The twins look up at her, then at each other. "These are our own thoughts," they say together. "But you're writing the same words. How is that possible unless one of you is copying the other?" "We share all our thoughts," says Evelyn. "Always," adds Edward. Their voices are so similar that Eleanor can only distinguish them by watching their lips move. She takes a deep breath, reminding herself of Mrs. Jenkins' warning about not indulging their unusual behavior. "Well, for this exercise, I'd like you to try to think of your own individual ideas. Edward, perhaps you could write about spring, and Evelyn, you could write about autumn." The twins stare at her for a long moment, then simultaneously tear their papers in half, the motion so synchronized it seems rehearsed. "We don't have separate thoughts," they say together. Eleanor realizes she needs a different approach. "Very well. Let's move on to mathematics for now." The rest of the morning proceeds with similar challenges. The twins perform every task in perfect synchronization, producing identical work. When Eleanor attempts to separate them, asking Edward to work on geography while Evelyn practices penmanship, they simply sit with hands folded, refusing to participate. By lunchtime, Eleanor is exhausted from the constant resistance. When Mrs. Jenkins comes to take the children to the dining room, Eleanor pulls her aside. "They won't work separately," she whispers. "Everything they do is identical, down to the last detail." The housekeeper nods grimly. "As I said, they must not be indulged in these behaviors. Mr. Montgomery's instructions were very clear. They are to be treated as individual children, not as a single entity. But how am I to teach them if they refuse to work independently?" "You must be firm, Miss Pierce. The doctor believes their condition will worsen if their unusual behaviors are not curtailed." After lunch, Eleanor tries again. This time, she physically separates the twins, placing them at opposite ends of the long table. "For this afternoon's lesson, you will work on your own," she says firmly. "Evelyn, you will read chapter 1 of The Water Babies and answer the questions I've prepared. Edward, you will read the first chapter of The Wind in the Willows." The twins remain seated where she's placed them, but their expressions are identical masks of disapproval. They sit with hands folded on the table, making no move to take the books she's placed in front of them. "Children, this is not acceptable behavior," Eleanor says, her patience wearing thin. "You will do as instructed, or there will be consequences. We must stay together," they say in unison, despite being seated far apart. "You are together. You're in the same room. But you must do your own work." "We are one," says Evelyn, her strange left eye seeming to bore into Eleanor. "Always one," echoes Edward. A sudden gust of wind blows the window open, scattering papers across the room. Eleanor hurries to close it, and when she turns back she gasps. The twins are now standing side by side in the center of the room, though she didn't hear them move. "How did you—" she begins, but stops as the temperature in the room seems to drop precipitously. Her breath forms visible clouds in the suddenly frigid air. The twins stand perfectly still, their eyes, all four of them, fixed on Eleanor. But Evelyn's left eye, that strange green eye, seems to look past her, through her, at something Eleanor cannot see. "He's here," Evelyn whispers, her voice no longer synchronized with her brother's. "He's watching us." Edward's expression changes, fear replacing the blank mask he's worn all day. "Evie, don't!" he pleads, his voice higher and more childlike than before. "You promised." Evelyn's head turns slowly toward her brother, but her left eye remains fixed on the empty space behind Eleanor. "He wants to play the mirror game again," she says softly. Eleanor feels a presence behind her but forces herself not to turn. "Children, that's enough. Return to your seats at once." The twins ignore her, locked in their own strange communication. Edward takes his sister's hands, his expression pleading. "No more games, Evie. Remember what happened last time." The temperature in the room returns to normal so suddenly that Eleanor feels lightheaded. The twins blink, and when they look at her again, they're once more the perfect mirror images they've presented themselves as. "We'll read the books now, Miss Pierce," they say together, returning to their separate seats with identical measured steps. Eleanor watches them, her heart still racing, as they open their respective books and begin to read. Their synchronized behavior has returned. They turn pages at exactly the same moment, their expressions changing in perfect unison as they read entirely different stories. That evening, Eleanor adds to her journal, October 18th, 1907. The twins displayed most unusual behavior during lessons today. They write identical compositions, answer questions with the same words, even move in perfect synchronization. Mrs. Jenkins speaks of a shared madness, but there seems to be more at work here. Evelyn's left eye troubles me deeply. When she spoke of someone watching, the very air in the room seemed to change. And what is this mirror game they mentioned? What happened last time? I must learn more about these children and their history. The next few days fall into an uneasy routine. Eleanor attempts to teach the twins as individual children, but their resistance is absolute. They continue to produce identical work, speak in unison, and move as perfect reflections of each other. Eleanor reports this to Mrs. Jenkins, who merely purses her lips and reminds her of Mr. Montgomery's instructions. On the fourth night of Eleanor's stay, a violent thunderstorm rolls in. Rain lashes against the windows, and lightning illuminates the grounds in brief, stark flashes. Unable to sleep, Eleanor sits by her window, watching the storm rage over the woods beyond the garden. A movement catches her eye, a figure darting between the trees at the edge of the property. Lightning flashes again, and Eleanor gasps. It appears to be a child, dressed in white, running into the woods. Without hesitation, Eleanor throws on her coat over her nightgown, slips her feet into boots, and hurries downstairs. The house is dark and silent as she makes her way to the rear door that leads to the garden. Outside, the rain is torrential, soaking her within moments. Guided by occasional lightning flashes, Eleanor runs toward the woods, calling out, though her voice is lost in the storm's fury. At the tree line, she hesitates. The woods are pitch black between lightning strikes, and she has no lantern. "Hello? Is someone there?" she calls out. A flash of lightning reveals a small figure standing among the trees, watching her. It's one of the twins, their white nightgown plastered to their small frame by the rain. "Come back to the house!" Eleanor shouts, moving toward the child. "It's dangerous out here!" The child turns and runs deeper into the woods. Eleanor follows, branches scratching at her face and hands as she stumbles through the underbrush. The storm grows more violent, lightning striking closer, the crashes of thunder immediate and deafening. She loses sight of the child in the darkness but continues forward, calling out. Suddenly the ground gives way beneath her, and she finds herself sliding down a steep, muddy embankment. She comes to a stop at the bottom, bruised but not seriously injured. Lightning illuminates her surroundings. She's in a small clearing, and at its center stands a strange structure. It appears to be a miniature house, no larger than a garden shed, but built with unusual care. Its walls are painted white, though the paint is peeling, and its small windows are fitted with real glass. The child stands before the little house, one hand on the tiny door. In the next flash of lightning, Eleanor sees it's Evelyn, or at least the twin with the unusual left eye. "Evelyn, come away from there!" We must return to the house immediately. The child looks at her, rain streaming down her face. This is where we play the mirror game, she says, her voice barely audible above the storm. This is where it happened. Before Eleanor can respond, the small door of the playhouse opens, and another figure emerges. Edward, also in a soaked nightgown, his face a mask of terror. Evie, no. He's angry tonight. The storm makes him angry. Evelyn turns to her brother, that strange left eye seeming to glow in the darkness between lightning flashes. He wants to show her. He wants her to know. Know what? Eleanor asks, moving closer despite her growing dread. Children, please, tell me what's happening. Edward grabs his sister's arm. We have to go back, before he comes all the way through. Evelyn resists, her gaze fixed on the open door of the playhouse. It's too late. He's already here. A gust of wind sweeps through the clearing, so powerful it knocks Eleanor to her knees. The tiny door of the playhouse slams shut with a force that seems impossible for its size. Run! Edward screams, pulling his sister away from the structure. Run now! The twins flee past Eleanor, back toward the path that leads to the main house. Eleanor scrambles to her feet, following them. As she reaches the edge of the clearing, she can't resist looking back. In the next lightning flash, she sees a figure standing before the playhouse. Tall, unnaturally thin, with limbs that seem too long for its body. It's only visible for a split second before darkness returns. But that glimpse is enough to send Eleanor running after the children, her heart pounding with primal fear. She catches up to them at the edge of the woods. The main house is visible now, its windows glowing with lamplight despite the late hour. Mrs. Jenkins stands at the rear door, a lantern held high. Miss Pierce, children, get inside at once. They rush inside, all three soaked to the bone and trembling, though Eleanor suspects it's not just from the cold. Mrs. Jenkins hurries them upstairs, ordering maids to bring hot water and dry clothing. The twins are whisked away to their bedroom, while Eleanor is led to hers. What were you thinking, taking the children into the woods during a storm? Mrs. Jenkins demands as a maid helps Eleanor out of her wet clothes. I didn't take them. I saw one of them running into the woods and followed. Enough. We'll discuss this in the morning. Once you're dry and warm, come to my sitting room. The east wing, second floor. Eleanor changes quickly into dry clothes, her mind racing. What had she seen in those woods? What was that strange playhouse? And what game did the twins play there? Mrs. Jenkins's sitting room is small but comfortably furnished. A fire burns in the grate, and a tea service is laid out on a small table. The housekeeper gestures for Eleanor to sit. The children are settled, no harm done, though all three of you could have caught your deaths out there. She pours tea, adding a generous splash of brandy to Eleanor's cup. Drink this. It will ward off any chill. Eleanor accepts the cup gratefully, the brandy burning a warm path to her stomach. Mrs. Jenkins, there's something in those woods. A small house, like a playhouse. And the children spoke of a mirror game and someone being angry. Stop! Mrs. Jenkins' voice is sharp. Miss Pierce, I warned you not to indulge the children's fantasies. There is no playhouse in the woods. The property was thoroughly searched after the incident last year. Incident? What incident? Mrs. Jenkins sighs heavily, adding a splash of brandy to her own tea. I suppose you must know if you're to have any hope of helping these children. She takes a long sip before continuing. Last summer, the twins began to change. Before that, they were normal children, different from each other as any brother and sister might be. Evelyn was outgoing, talkative. Edward was quieter, more studious. But then they began this mirroring, speaking together, dressing alike, insisting they could read each other's thoughts. She pauses, staring into the fire. Mr. and Mrs. Montgomery consulted doctors, specialists from Boston and even New York. The twins were diagnosed with folie à deux, as I told you, but the treatments prescribed, separating them, stern discipline, only made their behavior more pronounced. And the incident you mentioned? The previous governess, Miss Winters, encouraged their fantasies. She allowed them to play their games, even joined in sometimes. Then, one night during a storm much like tonight's, she and the children disappeared. The entire household searched for hours. They were finally found in the woods, all three unconscious, with no memory of how they got there. And Miss Winters? The family emergency you mentioned. There was no family emergency. The woman had a complete mental collapse. She was found the next morning in her room, cutting her own skin with scissors, trying to let the other one out, she said. She was committed to an asylum in Boston. Eleanor's hand trembles, spilling tea onto her dress. And the children? What happened to them? They were unharmed, physically, but after that night, their strange behaviors intensified. And Evelyn's eye. What about her eye? Mrs. Jenkins looks uncomfortable. Evelyn was born with 2 blue eyes, identical to her brother's. After that night in the woods, her left eye changed color. The doctors can't explain it. Some kind of trauma, they say. Eleanor remembers the photograph she saw showing the twins as infants with matching eyes. Mrs. Jenkins, I saw something in those woods tonight. Not just the playhouse, but something else. Something that frightened the children terribly. The housekeeper's face pales. There is nothing in those woods, Miss Pierce. Nothing but the children's imaginings, which you are unfortunately beginning to share. I think perhaps this position may not be suitable for you after all. You're dismissing me. I'm suggesting that you might want to reconsider your employment here, for your own well-being. Eleanor sits straighter, finding a strength she didn't know she possessed. I will not abandon those children. Whatever is happening to them, they need help, and I intend to provide it. Mrs. Jenkins studies her for a long moment. Very well, but know this. If there is any repeat of tonight's events, if you encourage the twins' delusions in any way, I will have no choice but to telegraph Mr. Montgomery, and he will not be as understanding as I have been. Eleanor returns to her room, too agitated to sleep despite her exhaustion. She takes out her journal. October 21st, 1907. Tonight I followed the twins into the woods during a storm and discovered a small playhouse in a clearing. The children spoke of a mirror game and someone being angry. Mrs. Jenkins claims there is no playhouse, that the property was searched after an incident last year involving the previous governess. She told me the twins were once normal children who began to change last summer, developing their strange mirroring behaviors. The previous governess apparently suffered a mental collapse after being found unconscious in the woods with the children. Most disturbingly, Evelyn's left eye changed color after that incident. What happened in those woods? What is the mirror game? And what did I glimpse in that lightning flash? The next morning, Eleanor awakens to find the storm has passed, leaving behind a clear autumn day. From her window, she can see the groundskeeper and several workmen examining fallen branches and other damage on the property. When she enters the breakfast room, the twins are already seated, eating in their usual synchronized manner. They show no signs of their frightening experience from the night before. "Good morning, children," Eleanor says, watching them carefully for any reaction. "Good morning, Miss Pierce." They respond in unison, their expressions placid. "I think we'll forego formal lessons today," Eleanor continues, taking her seat. "Instead, I'd like you to tell me about the playhouse in the woods." The twins freeze, spoons halfway to their mouths. They exchange a glance, a silent communication passing between them. "There is no playhouse," they say together. "I saw it last night. You both were there." They resume eating, their movements once again perfectly synchronized. "We were in bed last night," they say. "All night. Mrs. Jenkins checked on us." Eleanor feels a chill despite the warm morning sunlight streaming through the windows. Had she imagined the entire episode? But no, her coat was still damp, hanging by the fire in her room, and there were scratches on her hands from the branches in the woods. "After breakfast," she says carefully, "I thought we might take a walk. The storm has passed, and the fresh air would do us good." The twins look up sharply. "We're not allowed in the woods," they say together. "I didn't say anything about the woods, but now that you mention it, why aren't you allowed there?" Again, that silent communication passes between them. Finally, Edward speaks alone. "Father says it's dangerous. There are old wells and foxholes. We could fall." Eleanor notes the change, Edward speaking independently, offering a reasonable explanation. Is he the more rational of the two? The one resisting whatever strange influence seems to be at work? "I see. Well, we'll stay to the gardens then. I'd like to see the roses Mrs. Jenkins speaks so highly of." After breakfast, they walk in the formal gardens, which are beginning to show signs of the approaching winter. Most of the flowers have faded, and the gardeners are preparing the beds for frost, covering delicate plants with burlap. Eleanor leads the twins to a stone bench beside a small fountain, now dry for the season. "Sit with me," she invites them. "I'd like us to talk." They sit on either side of her, their posture identical, backs straight, hands folded in their laps. "I want to help you," Eleanor says gently, "but I can only do that if you tell me the truth about what's happening." The twins stare straight ahead, their expressions unchanged, but Eleanor notices a slight tremor in Edward's hands. "You're frightened," she continues, "both of you, of something in those woods, something connected to the mirror game you mentioned." "We don't play games," they say in unison, but their voices lack conviction. Eleanor takes a risk, turning to face Evelyn directly. "Your eye changed color last summer, after an incident in the woods. What happened, Evelyn?" Evelyn's strange left eye seems to flicker, the green deepening momentarily to an almost emerald hue. "Nothing happened," she says, but her voice is her own now, not synchronized with Edward's. "Something happened," Eleanor insists gently. "Something that frightened both of you. Something that you're still afraid of." Edward suddenly stands, breaking the perfect mirroring they've maintained. "Stop," he says, his voice cracking. "Please stop asking. He'll hear you." "Who will hear me, Edward?" "The man in the mirror," Evelyn whispers, that left eye now fixed on some point in the distance. "The one who wants to come through." A cold breeze ruffles the dead leaves at their feet, swirling them into small eddies despite the otherwise still air. Eleanor fights the urge to look over her shoulder. "What man? What mirror?" "The one in the playhouse," Edward says, his voice barely audible. "The one who offered to make us the same." "We wanted to be the same," Evelyn continues, her voice taking on a dreamy quality. "We were tired of being different, tired of being separate. He said he could help us." "Who is he?" Eleanor asks, her throat dry with fear. "He doesn't have a name," Edward says. "At least not one he'll tell us. He lives on the other side of the mirror in the playhouse. He's been there for a long, long time. Waiting. Waiting for what?" Evelyn's strange eye fixes on Eleanor's face. "For someone who wants to cross over. Someone who wants to be something else." Edward grabs his sister's hand, pulling her to her feet. "We have to go inside now. It's not safe to talk about him outside. He can hear us everywhere, but especially outside." Before Eleanor can protest, the twins run toward the house, moving in that uncanny synchronization once more. She remains on the bench, processing what she's just heard. A man in a mirror who can make people the same. A presence that can hear them, that becomes angry during storms. And something about crossing over. It sounds like the stuff of fairy tales or ghost stories, the kind of fantasy that children might concoct. And yet, the genuine fear in Edward's voice, the strange quality of Evelyn's left eye, and the incident with the previous governess all suggest something more sinister at work. Eleanor spends the rest of the day trying to engage the twins in normal activities, but they've retreated into their perfect mirroring once again, refusing to speak except in unison, moving as exact reflections of each other. By evening, Eleanor is exhausted from the effort of trying to reach them. After the twins are put to bed, Eleanor returns to her room and takes out her journal. October 22nd, 1907. The twins spoke of a man in the mirror in a playhouse in the woods. They claim this entity offered to make them the same, which they wanted. Edward seems frightened of this presence, while Evelyn appears almost entranced by it. They believe it can hear them, especially when they're outdoors. Is this merely an elaborate fantasy, a manifestation of their shared psychological condition? Or is there something more tangible behind their fears? I must find that playhouse again, in daylight this time, and see for myself what might be there. The next morning brings fog, thick and impenetrable, shrouding the grounds of Thornfield Manor. During breakfast, Eleanor announces that lessons will be conducted in the library as usual, but she has other plans. Once the twins are settled with their books, she excuses herself, claiming she needs to retrieve additional materials from her room. Instead, she makes her way downstairs and out a side door, a small lantern in hand to guide her through the fog. The woods are transformed in the mist, the trees looming like specters, branches reaching out like grasping hands. Eleanor moves cautiously, trying to retrace her path from the night of the storm. It's difficult without the lightning to illuminate her way, but she remembers sliding down an embankment, so she searches for a slope. After nearly an hour of wandering, she's about to give up when the ground begins to descend sharply before her. Carefully, she makes her way down, using tree roots as handholds. At the bottom, she finds herself in what must be the clearing, though the fog is so thick she can barely see more than a few feet ahead. Eleanor moves forward slowly, swinging her lantern in wide arcs, trying to locate the playhouse. The fog seems to swallow the light, reflecting it back in a disorienting glow. She's about to call out when her foot strikes something solid. Kneeling, she finds herself face to face with the playhouse, or what remains of it. The structure is charred, reduced to blackened timber and melted glass. It's been burned, and from the weathering of the remains, not recently. Eleanor sits back on her heels, confusion washing over her. This can't be the playhouse she saw during the storm. That structure had been intact, its white paint peeling but otherwise whole. Yet here before her are the unmistakable remains of a child's playhouse, roughly the same size and shape as the one she remembers. As she examines the ruins more closely, something gleams among the ashes. Eleanor reaches in carefully, mindful of splinters, and retrieves a small object. A hand mirror, its silver backing tarnished but its glass unbroken. The handle is ornately carved with intertwining snakes, their eyes set with tiny red stones that might be garnets. Eleanor turns the mirror over in her hands, puzzled by its presence among the ruins. It seems far too fine to be a child's toy, more like an antique that would belong in a lady's dressing table collection. As she holds it up to examine it more closely, a movement reflects in the glass. A figure standing behind her in the fog. Eleanor whirls around, but there's no one there. Heart pounding, she looks back at the mirror. The figure is still reflected there, closer now. A tall, thin silhouette, featureless in the mist. Eleanor drops the mirror with a cry, scrambling backward. The mirror lands face up on the ground, and for a moment, Eleanor swears she sees a hand reaching out from its surface. Then the fog shifts, and it's just a mirror again, reflecting the swirling mist above. With trembling hands, Eleanor picks up the mirror, wrapping it in her handkerchief and placing it in her coat pocket. Whatever this object is, it seems connected to the twins' story, and she intends to investigate further. The sound of voices calling her name cuts through the fog. Mrs. Jenkins and what sounds like several of the household staff. Eleanor quickly makes her way back up the embankment, meeting the search party at the edge of the woods. "Miss Pierce, what are you doing out here? The children said you left over an hour ago and never returned." Mrs. Jenkins's face is flushed with anger and exertion. "I'm sorry to have caused concern," Eleanor replies, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "The fog disoriented me, and I'm afraid I got turned around." Mrs. Jenkins looks suspicious but accepts the explanation. "Well, come back to the house at once. The children are quite upset." Eleanor follows the housekeeper back to the manor, where she finds the twins waiting in the entrance hall. Standing so close together, they appear to be one child with two heads. Their faces are identical masks of anxiety. "Children, I apologize for my absence. The fog was thicker than I anticipated. You went to the woods," they say in unison, not a question, but a statement. "I went for a walk and got lost," Eleanor replies carefully, aware of Mrs. Jenkins watching closely. "You found it," Evelyn says, her voice separate from her brother's. That strange left eye seems to look right through Eleanor's coat pocket, to the mirror wrapped in her handkerchief. "Found what, dear?" Eleanor asks, maintaining a calm facade. "The door," Evelyn whispers, the green of her left eye seeming to pulse with an inner light. "You found his door." Mrs. Jenkins steps between them. "That's quite enough, children. Return to the library at once. Miss Pierce will join you shortly." Once the twins have gone, she turns to Eleanor, her expression severe. "I warned you, Miss Pierce. If you continue to indulge the children's fantasies—" "I did no such thing," Eleanor interrupts. "I simply got lost in the fog." The twins' reaction is their own. Mrs. Jenkins studies her face, clearly not believing her, but unable to prove otherwise. "See that you're more careful in the future. These grounds can be treacherous, especially in poor weather." In her room that evening, Eleanor carefully examines the mirror she found. The glass is flawless despite its age, reflecting her face with perfect clarity. The handle is even more intricate than she first realized. The carved snakes so detailed she can make out individual scales. The red stones set as their eyes catch the lamplight, seeming to glow from within. Eleanor holds the mirror at various angles, half expecting to see the mysterious figure again, but it reflects nothing unusual. She places it on her desk and takes out her journal. October 23, 1907. "Today I found the remains of a burned playhouse in the woods, approximately where I saw an intact structure during the storm. Among the ruins was a silver hand mirror of unusual craftsmanship. When I examined it in the fog, I saw a figure reflected in it that wasn't present when I turned around. The twins somehow knew I had found something, with Evelyn referring to it as his door. There is clearly a connection between this mirror, the burned playhouse, and the twins' strange behavior. I must learn more about the history of this property and the man in the mirror the children spoke of." Eleanor closes her journal and prepares for bed, placing the mirror in the drawer of her nightstand. As she drifts off to sleep, she thinks she hears a faint tapping, like fingernails against glass, but convinces herself it's only branches against her window. Eleanor awakens with a start, unsure what disturbed her sleep. The room is dark, the fire having died down to embers. A sliver of moonlight cuts across the floor from a gap in the curtains. The tapping comes again, distinct now, not branches but a deliberate rhythm against glass. And it's not coming from the window, but from the drawer of her nightstand. Slowly, Eleanor lights the candle beside her bed and opens the drawer. The mirror lies where she placed it, wrapped in her handkerchief. But as she watches, the cloth moves slightly, as if something beneath it is stirring. With trembling fingers, Eleanor unwraps the mirror. In the candlelight, the red stones in the snake's eyes seem to pulse with a heartbeat not her own. She lifts the mirror, angling it to catch her reflection. What she sees makes her nearly drop it again. Her face is reflected as expected, but behind her, clearly visible despite the darkness of the room, stands a figure. Tall and unnaturally thin, dressed in antiquated clothing, a frock coat and high collar from perhaps a century earlier. Its face is handsome in a cold, severe way, with high cheekbones and deep-set eyes that seem to burn with an inner light. Eleanor whirls around, but the room is empty. When she looks back at the mirror, the figure is closer to her reflection, standing just behind her shoulder now. It smiles, revealing teeth too numerous and sharp to be human. "Who are you?" Eleanor whispers, her voice barely audible. The figure in the mirror places a long-fingered hand on her reflection's shoulder. Though she feels nothing in reality, Eleanor swears she can sense a cold pressure where those fingers touch her reflection. "You know who I am," the figure says, its voice like dry leaves rustling. "The children have told you. I am the one who grants wishes, the one who makes things the same. What do you want?" The figure's smile widens impossibly. "To help, to give people what they desire most. The twins wished to be the same, to share everything. I granted their wish." "You changed Evelyn's eye." The figure nods, its movement jerky, like a puppet on strings. "A necessary modification. A window, you might say, between worlds. Between their world and mine." "And what world is that?" "The world of the mirror. The world where everything is reversed." It leans closer to Eleanor's reflection, those burning eyes fixed on hers. "What do you desire, Eleanor Pierce? What wish would you have me grant?" Eleanor's mind races. She's engaging with an apparition, a hallucination born of stress and the twins' strange stories. And yet, the mirror is real, found in a very real burned playhouse. "I wish for the truth," she says finally, "about what happened to the twins, about what you did to them." The figure's expression sours. "Truth is subjective, especially between worlds, but I can show you, if you truly wish to see." It extends a hand toward her reflection. "Take my hand in the mirror, and I will show you everything." Eleanor hesitates. "And if I refuse, then you will never understand, never help the children. They will remain as they are, half in one world, half in another, until he comes all the way through." "He? You speak as if you're someone else." The figure's face distorts, features shifting like smoke. "I am a messenger, a doorway. Take my hand, Eleanor Pierce, if you wish to save the children." Eleanor stares at the outstretched hand in the mirror. Every instinct warns her against accepting this offer, and yet, if there's even a chance she could help the twins. "Show me," she whispers, reaching toward her own reflection, as if to clasp the figure's hand. The moment before her fingers would touch the glass, a scream pierces the night, high, terrified, coming from the direction of the twins' bedroom. Eleanor drops the mirror onto the bed and rushes from her room, not bothering with a robe over her nightgown. The corridor is dark, but she can hear commotion from the floor above. More screams, running footsteps. She hurries up the stairs, nearly colliding with a maid carrying a lamp. "What's happening?" Eleanor demands. "It's the children, miss. Something's wrong with the little girl." Eleanor pushes past her, running toward the twins' room. The door stands open, light spilling into the hallway. Inside, she finds chaos. Mrs. Jenkins kneeling beside Evelyn, who lies thrashing on the floor, while Edward stands frozen by the window, his face a mask of terror. "What happened?" Eleanor asks, rushing to Evelyn's side. "She started screaming in her sleep," Edward says, his voice small and frightened. "Then she fell out of bed, and her eye. Look at her eye." Eleanor looks down at Evelyn's face. The child's left eye is open wide, the green iris glowing with an unnatural light. The right eye remains tightly closed. "He's coming through," Evelyn says, her voice not her own, deeper, with a strange accent Eleanor can't place. "The door is open. He's coming through." "Who's coming through, Evelyn?" Eleanor asks, taking the girl's cold hand in hers. "Tell me who." Evelyn's body goes rigid, her back arching impossibly. When she speaks again, her voice is a horrible rasp. The man in the mirror, the one who makes things the same. He's so hungry, so very hungry. Mrs. Jenkins crosses herself. Lord preserve us, she whispers. It's happening again. What's happening? What happened before? Eleanor demands, but the housekeeper only shakes her head, lips pressed tightly together. Evelyn's body relaxes suddenly, going limp on the floor. Her left eye closes, the unnatural glow fading. She looks like a normal sleeping child now, peaceful despite the violence of moments before. Get the doctor, Mrs. Jenkins orders one of the maids, and telegraph Mr. Montgomery at once. Tell him it's worse than before. Eleanor helps carry Evelyn back to her bed. The girl feels lighter than she should, as if something essential has been drained from her. Edward climbs into the bed beside his sister, taking her hand, his face streaked with tears. I told her not to look in it anymore, he whispers to Eleanor. I told her he was tricking us. Looking in what, Edward? The mirror. The one from the playhouse. The one he lives in. Eleanor's blood runs cold. The mirror with the snake handle, with red eyes. Edward nods. We found it last summer in the old playhouse. It was hidden under the floorboards. Evie looked in at first and she saw him. He told her he could make us the same, that we'd never have to be apart. We didn't know what he really wanted. And what was that? To come through, to our side. He needs a door, a living door. Edward looks down at his sister. That's what he's making Evie, a door. Mrs. Jenkins returns, shooing Eleanor away from the bed. The doctor is on his way. Go back to your room, Miss Pierce. There's nothing more you can do here tonight. Eleanor hesitates. Mrs. Jenkins, I need to know what happened before. You said, it's happening again. What did you mean? The housekeeper's face is gray with fear and exhaustion. Not now. Tomorrow, perhaps. Go, please. Eleanor has no choice but to return to her room. The mirror still lies on her bed where she dropped it. Carefully, avoiding looking directly into its surface, she wraps it again in her handkerchief and places it in the drawer, sliding a heavy book on top for good measure. In her journal, she writes with a shaking hand. Later, October 23, 1907. Something is terribly wrong. Evelyn had some sort of fit tonight, her left eye glowing unnaturally. She spoke in a voice not her own, saying, he's coming through. Edward claims they found the mirror I discovered today in the playhouse last summer, and that something in it promised to make them the same. He believes this entity is trying to use Evelyn as a living door to come through to our world. The doctor has been called, and Mr. Montgomery telegraphed. I fear for the children, especially Evelyn. What have they unleashed? And have I made it worse by bringing the mirror back to the house? Eleanor wakes to gray dawn light and the sound of carriage wheels on gravel. Looking out her window, she sees a black carriage at the front entrance. A man in a doctor's garb stepping down. Mrs. Jenkins greets him at the door, her expression grim. Eleanor dresses quickly and makes her way to the twins' room, where she finds the doctor already examining Evelyn. The child lies still in her bed, eyes closed, her face pale as porcelain. Edward sits in a chair nearby, watching the proceedings with evident fear. Pulse is weak but steady, the doctor murmurs to Mrs. Jenkins. Pupils react normally to light, no fever. It appears to be some form of cataleptic trance, similar to what occurred last summer. Will she recover? Mrs. Jenkins asks. Last time she did, though the eye, well, that was unexpected. Keep her warm and comfortable. I've brought more of the restorative tonic that helped before, a spoonful every 4 hours. The doctor straightens, noticing Eleanor in the doorway. Ah, you must be the new governess. Dr. Blackwood. Miss Pierce, Eleanor acknowledges. What's wrong with her? Medically speaking, a type of catalepsy brought on by extreme nervous excitement. More commonly, we might call it a trance state. The twins have an unusual condition that makes them susceptible to such states, especially when their unique bond is threatened. Their bond? Dr. Blackwood glances at Edward, then lowers his voice. Mr. Montgomery has kept me fully informed about the situation. The twins' condition, their psychological mirroring, seems to have progressed since my last visit. When I first began treating them, they were merely finishing each other's sentences, seeking each other's company. Now they appear to have developed a shared identity. And Evelyn's eye, the left one that changed color. The doctor frowns. A most unusual case of heterochromia, typically present from birth, but in Evelyn's case, it appeared suddenly last summer, after her first episode. I've consulted colleagues in Boston, but none have seen a similar case. Could it be connected to whatever is causing their behavioral changes? Science has yet to establish a connection between eye color and mental health, Miss Pierce. His tone is patronizing. More likely, the trauma of the episode triggered a physical change that was already latent in her system. Eleanor wants to argue but knows it would be futile. The doctor belongs to a world of rational explanations, of causes and effects that can be measured and documented. What she's experienced in this house, the figure in the mirror, Evelyn's glowing eye, the presence in the woods, exists outside that rational world. When will Mr. Montgomery arrive? She asks instead. Tomorrow, if the trains are running on schedule. In the meantime, I'll stay to monitor Evelyn's condition. Mrs. Jenkins has prepared a room for me. After the doctor leaves, Eleanor approaches Edward, who hasn't moved from his chair. How are you feeling? She asks gently. He's taking her away, the boy whispers, staring at his sister, piece by piece. Soon there won't be any of Evie left, just him looking through her eyes. The man in the mirror? Is that who you mean? Edward nods. He tricked us. He said he could make us share everything, thoughts, feelings, dreams. And he did, but not how we wanted. Now I can feel him inside her, trying to get in me too. But I fight him. How? How do you fight him? I remember who I am. Edward Montgomery. Not Evelyn. Not the thing in the mirror. Just Edward. His voice breaks. But Evie can't remember anymore. She wanted too much to be the same. Eleanor takes his small hand in hers. Edward, I want to help you and your sister. But I need to know more about the mirror. About what happened last summer. Edward glances toward the door, where Mrs. Jenkins can be heard speaking with the doctor in the hall. I can show you. Tonight, when everyone's asleep, I can show you where it started. That night, after the household has settled, a soft knock sounds at Eleanor's door. She opens it to find Edward, dressed in his nightclothes but with his coat and boots on over them. Come quickly, he whispers. Mrs. Jenkins takes laudanum to help her sleep, and the doctor is in the library with his medical journals. No one will miss us for an hour. Eleanor grabs her coat and the lantern she used the previous day. We're going to the playhouse? Edward nods. What's left of it? I have to show you before it's too late. They slip downstairs and out a rarely used side door that Edward seems familiar with. The night is clear, the moon nearly full, providing enough light to navigate the path to the woods. We found the playhouse our first week here, Edward explains as they walk. It was old even then, left over from when Grandfather Montgomery was a child, Father said. It had been forgotten, hidden by brambles. Evie and I cleared it out, made it our secret place. And you found the mirror there? Under the floorboards. It was wrapped in an old coat, buried like someone wanted it forgotten. Evie was the one who found it. She was always finding things. She said they called to her. They reached the edge of the woods, the path now darker as the trees block the moonlight. Eleanor lights the lantern, casting a small circle of illumination around them. After we found the mirror, Evie started looking into it for hours. She said she could see a different playhouse in it. A perfect one, with toys and books and a friend waiting for us. I saw it too sometimes, but it made me feel cold inside, like drinking ice water too fast. And the friend? The man in the mirror? He didn't look like a man at first. He looked like another child, a boy about our age. He told us his name was Thomas, and he'd been lonely for a very long time. He wanted friends to play with. He taught us the mirror game. What is the mirror game, Edward? The boy's face is solemn in the lantern light. It's where you copy everything the other person does, perfectly, like you're their reflection. Thomas said if we played it enough, we could learn to read each other's thoughts, to be perfect twins. And it worked. We started to know what the other was thinking, feeling. They reach the embankment leading down to the clearing. Edward navigates it with the confidence of familiarity, using roots and rocks as handholds. Eleanor follows more cautiously, the lantern swinging in her free hand. But then Thomas started to change. He got bigger, older. His voice got deeper, and sometimes when he looked at us, his eyes were all wrong, like they were burning. Evie didn't care. She was too excited about us becoming more alike, but I was scared. They reached the clearing, the burned remains of the playhouse visible in the moonlight. Edward approaches it slowly, as if it might come alive and attack him. One night during a storm, just like the one when you followed us, Evie snuck out to the playhouse. I followed her because I was worried. She had the mirror and she was talking to Thomas, except she wasn't calling him Thomas anymore. She was calling him Master. Eleanor shivers, not entirely from the night air. He told her there was one more step to become perfectly matched. One of us had to let him in, just a little bit. so he could make the connection complete. Evie volunteered before I could stop her. She pushed her face against the mirror, like she was trying to kiss Thomas. But her face went through, just a little bit. When she pulled back, her left eye had changed. And after that, we started being the same all the time. We'd speak together without planning it. We'd have the same dreams. But I could feel something else too. Something cold watching through Evie's green eye. Watching me. Edward kneels beside the charred remains, brushing away leaves to reveal a blackened floorboard. This is where we buried the mirror after what happened to Miss Winters. What did happen to her? Eleanor asks, kneeling beside him. She caught us playing the mirror game. We'd brought the mirror to the house because Evie said Thomas, the master, wanted to see inside. Miss Winters found us talking to it, but instead of being angry, she was curious. She asked to look in the mirror too. Edward's voice drops to a whisper. The master showed her something in the mirror, something that made her scream and scream. Then she grabbed the mirror and ran into the woods. We followed her here, to the playhouse. She was inside with the mirror when the lightning hit. The playhouse was struck by lightning. Edward nods. It caught fire. We pulled Miss Winters out, but she was already different. Her eyes were open, but it wasn't her looking out of them. The master was inside her just for a moment. Then she fainted, and we fainted too. And the next thing I knew, men from the house were carrying us home. And the mirror? We thought it had burned. But the next day, Evie went back and found it in the ashes, not even damaged. She hid it in our room. That's when things got worse. She started disappearing inside herself, letting the master look through her eye more and more. And Miss Winters? The housekeeper said she had some kind of breakdown. The master was in her too, just a little. Not like Evie, but enough. She kept trying to find the mirror, kept saying she needed to break it to let the others out. When they took her away, Evie got scared. We decided to bury the mirror back here, where we found it. Eleanor looks at the burned ruins thoughtfully. But now I've brought it back to the house. Edward's eyes widen. You took it? Where is it? In my room, in a drawer. We have to get rid of it. Throw it in the river. Bury it with rocks. Something. Before the master comes all the way through Evie's eye. What happens if he comes through? Edward's face is pale in the moonlight. He takes over completely. Evie disappears forever. And then he'll want me too, to make us perfectly the same. But not the same as each other. The same as him. Eleanor puts a hand on the boy's shoulder. I won't let that happen, Edward. We'll find a way to help your sister and stop this entity. A noise from the woods behind them makes them both turn. Lantern light approaches through the trees, accompanied by the sound of voices calling their names. Mrs. Jenkins, Edward whispers, and the doctor. They've found us missing. We'd better go to them, Eleanor says, standing and brushing leaves from her coat. We don't want them to find this place. They meet the search party at the edge of the clearing, Eleanor offering apologies and explanations about Edward being unable to sleep, worried for his sister. The doctor is stern but understanding, while Mrs. Jenkins seems suspicious, her gaze darting between Eleanor and the burned ruins just visible in the lantern light. This is most inappropriate, Miss Pierce, she says as they make their way back to the house. Taking a child from his bed in the middle of the night, bringing him to this place. I'm sorry, Mrs. Jenkins. It won't happen again. See that it doesn't. Mr. Montgomery arrives tomorrow, and I shall have to inform him of this incident. Back at the house, the doctor insists on examining Edward, though the boy shows no signs of distress beyond normal fatigue. Eleanor is sent to her room with a warning not to leave it until morning. Once alone, she immediately goes to the drawer where she left the mirror. It's still there, wrapped in her handkerchief, the book she placed on top unmoved. Yet somehow she knows without unwrapping it that the mirror is active. She can feel a cold energy emanating from the drawer, like the chill that rises from a block of ice. Eleanor takes out her journal. October 24th, 1907. Tonight, Edward showed me the remains of the playhouse where they found the mirror last summer. He told me a fantastical tale of an entity they first knew as Thomas, who taught them the mirror game to make them more alike. This entity apparently entered Evelyn partially through the mirror, changing her left eye and creating their strange bond. According to Edward, it now seeks to come through completely, using Evelyn as a door between worlds. The previous governess, Miss Winters, apparently looked into the mirror as well and was affected by it. The mirror survived a lightning strike that burned the playhouse. Mr. Montgomery arrives tomorrow. I must decide what to do with the mirror before then. Destroy it? Return it to the ruins? Can such an object even be destroyed by ordinary means? Eleanor looks up sharply from her journal. The sound seemed to come from the drawer containing the mirror. Heart pounding, she approaches it cautiously and slides it open. The handkerchief has unfolded itself, revealing the mirror face up. As Eleanor watches, a thin crack appears across its surface, spreading from one edge to the other like ice breaking on a pond. Through the crack, a wisp of what looks like smoke or mist emerges, hovering above the mirror. It coalesces slowly into a vaguely human shape, before dispersing again. Eleanor slams the drawer shut, breathing hard. Whatever is in that mirror is getting stronger, perhaps feeding on Evelyn's energy, as Edward suggested. She needs to act, and quickly. A soft knock at her door makes her jump. She opens it to find Dr. Blackwood standing there, a concerned expression on his face. "Miss Pierce, I apologize for disturbing you at this hour, but I wanted to check on you after your excursion with the boy." "I'm quite well, doctor. Just worried about the children." He nods, stepping into the room when she moves aside. "As am I. Edward is sleeping now. I gave him a mild sedative. Evelyn remains unchanged, I'm afraid. Do you have any idea what might be causing her condition?" The doctor sighs, removing his spectacles to polish them with a handkerchief. "Medically speaking, it appears to be a form of hysterical catatonia, but in my 40 years of practice, I've never seen a case quite like this. The twins' connection is unusual." "You don't believe in telepathy between twins, or shared consciousness?" "I believe in science, Miss Pierce, in observable, measurable phenomena. What I observe in the Montgomery twins goes beyond the usual twinned behaviors documented in medical literature. It's as if they are becoming a single consciousness, housed in two bodies." Eleanor takes a risk. "And what if there were a third consciousness involved? Something not human?" The doctor gives her a sharp look. "You've been listening to the boy's fantasies about a man in the mirror, I take it? What if they're not fantasies? What if there is something supernatural at work here?" Dr. Blackwood smiles sadly. "I feared this might happen. The previous governess succumbed to the same delusion. These old houses, isolated as they are with their drafts and creaks and shadows, they breed fancy and susceptible minds. Add to that the twins' unusual condition and their vivid imaginations. I'm not imagining things, doctor. There's something in this house. Something connected to a mirror the twins found last summer." "A mirror? You mean this?" The doctor reaches into his jacket and pulls out a folded handkerchief. He opens it to reveal a familiar object, the silver hand mirror with the snake handle. Eleanor gasps. "Where did you get that?" "From your drawer just now while you were watching Edward with Mrs. Jenkins. I suspected you might have found it." He turns the mirror over in his hands, examining the intricate craftsmanship. An interesting piece. Quite old, possibly 17th century. The workmanship suggests Italian origin. "Doctor, that mirror is dangerous." The children believe it contains some sort of entity that wants to possess them, yes. Edward told me the whole fantastic tale when I was examining him. A common enough delusion, actually. The belief that inanimate objects contain spirits or demons. Then why take it from my room? Dr. Blackwood's expression hardens slightly. "Because objects that feed delusions should be removed. This mirror has become a focus for the twins' shared psychosis, a physical representation of their mental state. With it gone, they may begin to improve. May I have it back, please?" Eleanor holds out her hand. "I'm afraid not. I'll be taking it with me when I leave. Mr. Montgomery has authorized me to remove anything I deem harmful to the children's recovery." He tucks the mirror back into his jacket. "Now, I suggest you get some rest, Miss Pierce. Tomorrow will be a difficult day with Mr. Montgomery's arrival and decisions to be made about the children's care." After the doctor leaves, Eleanor paces her room, troubled by this new development. Does Dr. Blackwood truly believe the mirror is merely an object that feeds the twins' delusions? Or does he have some other motive for taking it? She remembers the crack she saw forming in the glass, the wisp of smoke emerging. That was no hallucination. Something was happening to the mirror, something the doctor would likely not understand or accept. Unable to sleep, Eleanor spends the night researching what little she knows about such phenomena. Among her books is a small volume on folklore and superstitions she brought for the twins' cultural education. It contains a brief chapter on mirrors in various cultures, their use in divination, the belief that they can trap souls, the superstition that breaking a mirror brings 7 years of misfortune. One passage catches her attention. In certain esoteric traditions, mirrors are believed to be thresholds between worlds. Entities from other realms may use specially crafted mirrors as doorways, appearing first as reflections before attempting to cross fully into our world. Such entities often seek human hosts, preferring children whose souls are more malleable. The left eye is said to be particularly vulnerable as a point of entry, being associated with the moon and the subconscious mind. As dawn approaches, Eleanor adds a final entry to her journal, October 25, 1907. Dr. Blackwood has taken the mirror, claiming it feeds the twins' delusions, but I saw something emerging from it, a mist, forming a human shape. My research suggests mirrors can indeed serve as thresholds between worlds, with entities using them to cross over. Evelyn's changed left eye may be the door Edward spoke of, a point of entry for whatever is trying to come through. Mr. Montgomery arrives today. I must convince him of the danger, though I fear he will side with the doctor's scientific explanation. If the entity is gaining strength, as the crack in the mirror suggests, time may be running out for Evelyn. Mr. Montgomery arrives mid-morning, his carriage pulling up to the main entrance with a clatter of wheels and the snorting of tired horses. From her window, Eleanor watches as a tall, distinguished man in his 40s descends, his face drawn with worry. Mrs. Jenkins greets him at the door, already talking rapidly as she ushers him inside. Eleanor knows she will be summoned soon to account for her actions and possibly to be dismissed. She dresses carefully in her most professional attire, steeling herself for the confrontation to come. The summons arrives an hour later, a maid knocking at her door, informing her that Mr. Montgomery wishes to see her in his study immediately. Eleanor follows the girl downstairs, rehearsing what she will say, how she will make this rational, successful businessman understand what is happening to his children. The study is a masculine room, with leather-bound books lining the walls, a massive oak desk, and hunting trophies mounted above the fireplace. Mr. Montgomery stands with his back to the door, gazing out a window at the gardens. Dr. Blackwood sits in a leather chair, his expression grave. There is no sign of Mrs. Jenkins. "Miss Pierce," Mr. Montgomery says without turning, "I've heard some disturbing reports about your behavior since joining this household." "Sir, if you're referring to the night I followed the children into the woods during the storm, I'm referring," he interrupts, turning to face her, "to your encouraging of my children's delusions, their fantasy about a man in the mirror who makes them the same." Eleanor is taken aback by his directness. "Sir, I have not encouraged their beliefs. I've merely tried to understand, by taking my son to the burned playhouse in the middle of the night, by retrieving this object from the ruins." He gestures to the desk where the mirror lies, still wrapped in Dr. Blackwood's handkerchief. "I was trying to learn the truth, Mr. Montgomery. Your children are exhibiting behaviors that go beyond normal psychological conditions." Evelyn's eye changed color overnight. They speak and move in perfect unison. There is something unnatural. "Enough." Mr. Montgomery's face flushes with anger. "I've had quite enough of such talk from the previous governess. I hired you, Miss Pierce, based on your excellent references, your education in modern teaching methods. I did not hire you to indulge in superstitious nonsense about mirrors and entities from other worlds." Dr. Blackwood clears his throat. "If I may, Mr. Montgomery, Miss Pierce is not entirely to blame. The twins' condition is unusual and can be unsettling to those unfamiliar with such cases. Their ability to synchronize their behaviors is remarkable, even from a scientific standpoint, but not supernatural," Mr. Montgomery insists. "Not the result of some demon in a mirror." "Of course not," the doctor soothes. "A shared psychosis, exacerbated by isolation and their natural bond as twins, with proper treatment." "What treatment do you propose this time, doctor?" "The last course of medications left them listless and unresponsive for weeks, yet did nothing to stop their strange behaviors. I've consulted with colleagues in Vienna. There are new approaches being developed for cases of shared delusion. Separation is still recommended as the first step." Eleanor can't remain silent. "Separation? You mean sending them to different households?" Mr. Montgomery turns his cold gaze on her. "That is none of your concern, Miss Pierce. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately. You will be paid through the end of the month and given excellent references, provided you speak to no one about what you've witnessed in this house." "But sir, your children are in danger. Whatever is happening to them is getting worse. Evelyn is already lost in some kind of trance, and Edward believes she's being taken over by a man in the mirror." "Yes, I know." Mr. Montgomery's voice drips with sarcasm. "My son has quite the imagination, encouraged by his sister, and now, it seems, by you." Dr. Blackwood stands, placing a hand on Eleanor's arm. "Miss Pierce, perhaps it would be best if you packed your belongings. I'll arrange for a carriage to take you to the train station this afternoon." Eleanor shakes off his hand. "And what about the mirror? Will you at least destroy it, as a precaution?" Mr. Montgomery laughs bitterly. "Destroy a valuable antique because of a child's fantasy? I think not. The mirror will be locked away where the children cannot access it. That should be sufficient to break their fixation on it. And if Evelyn doesn't recover, if she remains in this trance, then we will pursue medical options, Miss Pierce, not superstitious ones. Now please go and pack your things." Eleanor knows further argument is useless. She turns to leave but pauses at the door. "May I at least say goodbye to Edward? He's frightened for his sister, and I promised I would help them, Mr. Montgomery's expression softens slightly. "You may see him briefly before you depart, but no more talk of mirrors or entities. Understood?" Eleanor nods, though she has no intention of keeping that promise. If she's leaving, she has nothing left to lose by telling Edward the truth as she sees it. In her room, Eleanor packs her few belongings quickly. She can't leave the twins to whatever fate awaits them, not without trying one last time to help. The mirror is the key. It must be. If she can somehow destroy it, perhaps whatever hold the entity has on Evelyn will be broken. But how to get access to it? Mr. Montgomery has likely locked it away already, perhaps in his study. She needs a distraction, something to draw him and the doctor away long enough for her to find and destroy the mirror. A soft knock at her door interrupts her thoughts. It's Edward, his small face solemn, eyes red-rimmed from crying. "Father says you're leaving," he says, as she ushers him inside. "He says you're not well, that you believe in our delusions too much. Your father is wrong, Edward. What's happening to you and Evelyn is real, not a delusion. I know." He sits on the edge of her bed, watching as she continues to pack. Evie knows too, or she did before she started letting him look through her eye. Has there been any change in her condition? Edward shakes his head. She's still sleeping, but it's not really sleep. I can feel her getting farther away. Soon there won't be any Evie left at all, just him wearing her like a glove. Eleanor kneels in front of him, taking his hands in hers. "Edward, I believe the mirror is the key to all of this. If we could destroy it, perhaps the entity, the master, would lose his connection to your sister. But how? Father has it now. I think I can get to it, but I'll need your help. I need a distraction, something to draw your father and Dr. Blackwood away from the study long enough for me to find the mirror." Edward thinks for a moment. "I could pretend to have a fit like Evie did. Father would call the doctor right away. No, that's too dangerous. The doctor might sedate you, and then you wouldn't be able to help if I succeed in getting the mirror." Eleanor paces the room, thinking. What we need is something that would require both of them to leave the house, even briefly. "A fire," Edward suggests hesitantly. "No, too dangerous and destructive." Eleanor stops pacing as an idea forms. "But perhaps, Edward, does your father keep his liquor cabinet in the study?" The boy nods. "Yes, in the cabinet behind his desk." "Perfect. Here's what we'll do." An hour later, Eleanor's plan is set in motion. She's finished packing, her valise sitting ready by the door. The carriage that will take her to the station is being prepared. Edward enters his father's study, where Mr. Montgomery is conferring with Dr. Blackwood. The boy moves to his father's side, seemingly seeking comfort, but as he does, he deliberately knocks over a glass of water onto a stack of important-looking papers on the desk. "Edward, be careful!" Mr. Montgomery exclaims, jumping up to salvage the wet documents. "I'm sorry, Father," Edward says, his voice trembling convincingly. "I didn't mean to." As his father and the doctor attempt to dry the papers, Edward moves to the liquor cabinet, ostensibly to fetch a clean cloth. With practiced ease, he turns the key already in the lock and slides open the door. As he takes out a cloth, he also, accidentally, knocks over a bottle of expensive brandy, which crashes to the floor, shattering and sending glass and liquor across the Persian rug. "Edward! For God's sake!" Mr. Montgomery roars. I'm sorry! Edward cries, backing away. "I was just trying to help." "Get one of the maids to clean this up," Mr. Montgomery orders Dr. Blackwood. "And find Mrs. Jenkins. The boy needs supervision while I salvage these contracts." As the doctor hurries out to comply, Edward creates further chaos by stepping in the broken glass, crying out in pain that's only partly feigned. Mr. Montgomery rushes to his son, lifting him to prevent further injury. "We need to get this glass out of your foot," he says, his anger turning to concern. Come, let's take you to the kitchen where the light is better. He carries Edward from the room, leaving the study temporarily unattended. Eleanor, who has been waiting nearby, slips inside the moment they're gone. The mirror isn't on the desk where she last saw it. She searches quickly, opening drawers, checking shelves. Time is running out. At any moment, someone might return. Finally, she thinks to check the liquor cabinet, which Edward had unlocked as part of their plan. There, behind the remaining bottles of spirits, is the mirror, still wrapped in the doctor's handkerchief. Eleanor grabs it and hurries from the study. She needs somewhere private to destroy it, somewhere she won't be interrupted. The obvious choice is the burned playhouse in the woods, where this all began. She slips out a side door, keeping to the gardens to avoid being seen from the house. Once in the woods, she moves quickly along the path she now knows well, down the embankment to the clearing where the playhouse ruins stand. The place feels different in daylight, less menacing, more melancholy. The charred remains of the playhouse look smaller, more pathetic than they did by lantern light. Eleanor unwraps the mirror, careful not to look directly into its surface. The crack she observed the night before has grown, now spanning the entire width of the glass. Through it, wisps of that strange mist continue to seep, dissipating in the daylight. She needs to destroy it completely, to shatter it beyond repair. Looking around, she finds a large rock among the ruins. She places the mirror face up on a flat stone and raises the rock above it. That won't work, you know. Eleanor whirls around at the sound of the voice, a voice she recognizes from her encounter in the bedroom, like dry leaves rustling. Standing at the edge of the clearing is a figure, tall, unnaturally thin, dressed in antiquated clothing. Its face is handsome in that cold, severe way she remembers from the reflection, but now she can see it directly, no longer confined to the mirror's surface. "What are you?" she asks, her voice surprisingly steady despite her fear. The figure tilts its head at an impossible angle. "I am a traveler, a visitor to your world, one who has waited a very long time for the right door to open. And that door is Evelyn, a child. Children make the best doors. Their minds are flexible, especially twins, with their natural connections to each other. It takes a step closer, its movements jerky and unnatural. The mirror is just a window. The girl is the door." Eleanor grips the rock tighter. "If I destroy the mirror, you'll trap me here on this side. Is that what you want? To sever my connection to my world, leaving me stranded in yours?" It smiles, revealing those two sharp teeth. "I would have no choice but to take the girl completely then, and her brother too, eventually." Eleanor's mind races. If destroying the mirror would trap the entity here rather than banish it, she needs another approach. "What do you want? Why come to our world at all?" The figure takes another step closer. She notices now that its feet don't quite touch the ground, hovering an inch or two above the fallen leaves. "Your world is so substantial, so full of sensations. In my realm, everything is reflection, echo, shadow. We hunger for the solidity of your existence. There are more of you?" Its smile widens impossibly. "Many more, all waiting for doors to open. The girl is just the beginning." Eleanor thinks of Evelyn lying in her trance, of Edward's fear that his sister is disappearing piece by piece. She thinks of Miss Winters, driven mad by whatever she saw in the mirror. "If I give you the mirror," she says slowly, "will you release Evelyn? Leave her and her brother in peace?" The entity laughs, a sound like glass breaking. "Why would I abandon a door already half open? The girl invited me in. She wanted to be special, to be more than just one half of a matching set. She's a child. She didn't understand what she was agreeing to. Ignorance doesn't invalidate consent, Miss Pierce. Not in my world." It extends a long-fingered hand toward her. "Give me the mirror. It's mine, after all. Made centuries ago as a portal between worlds." Eleanor glances down at the mirror, at the crack spreading across its surface. An idea forms. Not to destroy the mirror, but to use it. "If the mirror is a window," she says carefully, "then the crack is damaging that window. Soon it will be useless to you." The entity's expression shifts, a flicker of concern crossing its inhuman features. "Minor damage. Easily repaired once I have full access to your world. But you don't have full access yet. Not until you've completely taken over Evelyn. And that's not happening, is it? She's resisting somewhere deep inside. That's why she's in a trance. She's fighting you." It narrows its burning eyes. "The girl is weak. She cannot resist much longer, unless someone helps her." unless someone goes through the window from this side, into your world, to find whatever is left of her and bring her back. Eleanor meets its gaze steadily. Someone like me. The entity laughs again, but there's an edge of uncertainty to the sound. You? Cross over to my realm? The transition would destroy your mind, just as it did your predecessors. The human consciousness cannot comprehend the nature of my world. Miss Winters only looked into the mirror. She didn't go through, but I'm willing to try to save the children. Noble, but foolish. Even if you succeeded in crossing over, you would be trapped there. The window only opens one way for beings of your kind. Eleanor holds up the mirror. Then repair the crack. Make it a proper doorway that works both ways. In exchange, I'll stop trying to destroy it. The entity studies her, those burning eyes unblinking. You cannot trick me, Eleanor Pierce. I have existed for centuries watching your kind through windows like this one, learning your deceptions. No trick, just a negotiation. Repair the mirror, allow me to use it to help Evelyn, and I'll ensure it remains intact afterward. And why would you trust me to honor such an agreement? I don't, but I have no other options, and neither do you. The crack is spreading even as we speak. Soon the mirror will be useless to you, and you'll be cut off from your world with only half a foothold in ours. The entity considers this, its head tilting at that unnatural angle again. Very well. Place the mirror on the ground between us. Eleanor hesitates, then carefully sets the mirror on a flat stone between herself and the entity. The crack has indeed spread further, now branching out into smaller fissures across the glass. The entity kneels, a jerky, unsettling movement, and extends one long finger toward the mirror. Where the finger touches the glass, the cracks begin to seal themselves, the surface becoming whole again. There, it says, withdrawing its hand. A proper doorway once more. Now, our agreement.
I'll go through and find Evelyn, Eleanor says, her voice firm despite her racing heart. I'll bring her back to her body, whole and free of your influence. And if you fail, if you become lost in my realm, as so many others have, then you get what you want, Evelyn as your door to this world. The entity smiles its too wide smile. A fair wager. But know this, Eleanor Pierce. My world operates by different rules than yours. Time flows differently. Reality shifts. What seems solid may not be. What appears true may be the deepest lie. I understand. No, you don't. But you will. It gestures to the mirror. To cross over, you must give yourself to the reflection completely. Press yourself against the glass, as the girl did. Will yourself through. Eleanor picks up the mirror, angling it to catch her reflection. What she sees makes her gasp. Behind her reflection stands not the entity, but Evelyn, her face pleading, her left eye glowing green. Help me. The reflection of Evelyn mouths silently. Without further hesitation, Eleanor presses her face to the mirror's surface. The glass feels not cold and hard as expected, but warm and yielding, like pressing against a thin membrane. She pushes harder, and suddenly the resistance gives way entirely. Eleanor falls forward into darkness, the sensation of falling lasting both an instant and an eternity. When awareness returns, she finds herself in what appears to be the playhouse, but whole and unmarred by fire. The interior is lit by an unnatural light that seems to emanate from the walls themselves. Everything is slightly wrong, proportions that don't quite match human dimensions, colors that shift when not directly observed, surfaces that appear solid but ripple when touched. In the center of the playhouse sits Evelyn, or a version of her. This Evelyn is transparent, like a ghost, and her left eye is missing entirely, leaving a dark, empty socket. Miss Pierce? The apparition asks, her voice echoing as if coming from a great distance. How are you here? I've come to bring you back, Evelyn. Back to your body, to your brother. The ghost child shakes her head sadly. I can't go back. He has part of me now, the part that let him see through my eye. What do you mean? When I pressed my face to the mirror, he took a piece of my soul in exchange for letting me see his world. That piece became my green eye. Now he's taking more pieces, pulling me through bit by bit. Eleanor kneels beside the fading child. We have to try, Evelyn. Edward is waiting for you. He misses you terribly. At the mention of her twin, Evelyn's form becomes slightly more substantial. Eddie, I miss him too. We were supposed to be more connected, not separated like this. You can be connected again, properly, without this entity's interference. But you have to fight, Evelyn. You have to want to come back. I do want to, but I don't know how. I'm trapped here, in between worlds.
Eleanor thinks quickly. This realm operates by different rules. The entity had said, perhaps intent and will matter more than physical actions. Take my hand, Evelyn. Focus on your brother, on your bond with him. That's your true connection, not whatever this entity offered you. Evelyn reaches out a translucent hand, which passes through Eleanor's at first. But as the child concentrates, her form becomes more solid, and their fingers touch, then clasp. That's it, Eleanor encourages. Think of Edward, of your home, of your real life. As Evelyn focuses, the playhouse around them begins to shimmer and fade. In its place, Eleanor can see glimpses of the burned ruins, of the forest beyond. The boundary between worlds is thinning. He's coming, Evelyn whispers suddenly, her form flickering. He knows what we're trying to do. A shadow falls across the playhouse door, elongated, inhuman. The entity enters, its form even more disturbing in its own realm. Here, it doesn't pretend to be human at all. Its limbs bend at impossible angles. Its face shifts between features, never settling on one configuration. How disappointing, it says, its voice reverberating painfully in Eleanor's head. I had hoped you would become lost here, another soul to add to my collection. Instead, you try to steal what's rightfully mine. She never belonged to you, Eleanor says, standing protectively in front of Evelyn. You tricked a child with promises you never intended to keep. I promised to make the twins the same, and I did. They share thoughts, movements, speech. Would they have achieved such perfect symmetry without my help? They would have been themselves, individual, real, not puppets copying each other's movements. The entity moves closer, the air around it distorting like heat waves. Such limited thinking. In my world, individuality is a prison, not a virtue. Here, we understand the power of sameness, of perfect reflection. Is that why you're alone? Why no others of your kind are here with you? The entity freezes, its shifting features settling momentarily into a mask of rage. They exiled me, called me corrupt for my fascination with your world. But I will show them. Once I have a proper door, I can bring others through, build an army of perfect reflections. Eleanor feels Evelyn's hand tightening in hers. The child is becoming more substantial by the moment, drawing strength from their connection and her own determination. Your plan has failed, Eleanor tells the entity. Evelyn is coming back with me. Your door is closing. Then I'll take you instead. The entity lunges forward, its limbs elongating grotesquely, reaching for Eleanor with too many fingers. Acting on instinct, Eleanor raises the mirror, which she somehow still holds, despite having fallen through it. In this realm, perhaps it serves as a window back to her world. The entity recoils from its own reflection, hissing like a scalded cat. What are you doing? That is not meant to reflect me. Perhaps that's your problem, Eleanor says, keeping the mirror between them. You've spent so long looking into our world, you've forgotten how to look at yourself. She angles the mirror fully toward the entity, forcing it to confront its own reflection. It writhes in apparent agony, its form destabilizing, features melting and reforming in rapid succession. Evelyn, look at the mirror, Eleanor instructs. See your home, your brother. Focus on returning there. The child peers into the mirror, which no longer reflects the playhouse but shows Evelyn's bedroom at Thornfield Manor, where her physical body lies in its trance. Edward sits beside the bed, holding his sister's hand, tears streaming down his face. Eddie, Evelyn cries, her form now almost completely solid. I'm coming. She presses her face to the mirror's surface, which yields to her just as it had to Eleanor. In an instant, she's gone, leaving Eleanor alone with the entity. No, it screams, its voice shattering the air around them. The door! My door! The playhouse begins to collapse, the unnatural light flickering, the walls folding in on themselves like paper. The boundary between worlds is closing with Evelyn's departure. Eleanor backs toward the door, still holding the mirror between herself and the raging entity. It's over. Find another way to satisfy your curiosity about our world, one that doesn't involve stealing children's souls. You cannot escape, the entity snarls, though it keeps its distance from the mirror. The way back is closed to you now. Eleanor looks into the mirror again. It still shows Evelyn's bedroom, but now she can see the girl sitting up in bed, embracing her brother. Her left eye is blue again, matching her right. No trace of the unnatural green. The sight gives Eleanor hope. She presses her own face to the mirror's surface, willing herself back to her world with all her strength. The glass resists at first, solid against her skin. You see? The entity laughs. Trapped here with me. Forever. But Eleanor doesn't relent. She focuses on the twins, on her purpose in coming here, to save them from this creature's influence. The mirror begins to warm beneath her touch, softening gradually. No! The entity lunges for her, forgetting its aversion to the mirror in its desperation. Eleanor pushes harder against the glass, which finally gives way. As she falls forward through the portal, she feels the entity's cold fingers grasp her ankle, trying to pull her back. In the last moment before the connection breaks, she kicks out blindly and feels her foot connect with something solid. The grip on her ankle releases, and she tumbles fully into her own world, landing hard on the leaf-strewn ground of the clearing. The mirror falls beside her, its surface now cloudy and opaque. As Eleanor watches, it cracks again, but differently this time, from the inside out, as if something had struck it from the other side. The crack spreads rapidly, and then the glass shatters completely, fragments scattering across the ground. Eleanor lies there for a moment, catching her breath, unsure if she's truly escaped or if this is another trick of that strange realm. The sun on her face feels real enough, as does the solid ground beneath her, and the scent of autumn leaves. She gathers the broken pieces of the mirror carefully, using her handkerchief to avoid touching the fragments directly. Whatever power the mirror possessed seems to have dissipated with its breaking.